76% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Is that you? I'm the CEO of 5 different companies. I wasn't born into it. We lived on welfare, but I wanted more. I created this show, The School of Wealth, helping people escape poverty like I did. And that's my mission. That's my passion, is I want to help you out of that consumer debt. Teach you how to increase your credit score. Teach you how to make more money at your current job or your current business. And then how to actually create generational wealth without changing your lifestyle. It is going to be a lot of fun. This is not like regular school. Hey, I'm Ronnie Lambeth, and this is The School of Wealth. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ronnie Lambeth, and today I want to talk about the CARES Act, specifically the PPP loans and the EIDL loans, economic injury disaster loans, inside the $349 billion CARES Act that is giving out money to business owners. Now, if you have not seen my video on YouTube regarding the EIDL loans and PPP loans, I highly recommend that after today's podcast that you go find me on YouTube, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, and watch that video on PPP loans and EIDL loans. This is the way the government is attempting to keep American businesses from going out of business. Unfortunately, there's going to be millions of businesses that just don't reopen. They can't make it. I was on a call back in April with the Chamber of Commerce and the head of the SBA, and they said that roughly 50% of businesses that are closed for 10 days or more would not reopen, and it was over 70% of businesses that made it or that were closed for more than 30 days would not reopen. Think about that. If a business closes for more than 30 days, 70%, 7 out of 10 of the 30 million small businesses, so that's 21 million small businesses, will not reopen. And this is why they created the CARES Act, and they're putting almost $1 trillion into it. Now, if you print $1 trillion to bail out small businesses, and when I say bailout, I don't mean that in a negative way, not like what they did in 2008 when they bailed out the big businesses, but bailed out as in like give them some money to keep them afloat. What do you think is going to happen to our taxes? So I'm going to be talking about that in the future quite a bit more than I normally do, because our taxes are going to go up, and it's going to be kind of, hey, we have to do this because we bailed you guys out and we saved your jobs. 56 million people work for small businesses. But anyway, let's get into the CARES Act and PPP. Now, PPP is Payroll Protection Program. This is for businesses who have payroll. They have employees. If it's you and your dog, and I say my dog because my 87-pound golden doodle's laying on my feet right now in my office as I do this podcast. But if you're on payroll, if you pay yourself a check and you get a W-2 and you take out withholdings and all that, then you would qualify for the PPP loan. The more employees you have, you qualify. And as long as you have less than 500 employees per business, you qualify. Now, the reason I say per business is I spent the week last week with a friend who owns 7 different car dealerships, and he's like, yeah, I don't qualify. I'm like, Scott, you qualify. He's like, I got 700 employees. I said, each dealership, though, is a different business, therefore you qualify. And he didn't realize this, and now he qualifies for literally millions of dollars of PPP money that he, like I think millions of other business owners, will not even apply for, or he wasn't even going to apply for, but he did. So he's going to get, who knows, $10, $15 million. And what you get is you get 100% of the payroll for 2 months of the last 12 months. So how that works is from February 1st, 2019 to February 1st, 2020, you take all of your payroll, divide it by 12 times 2, and that's how much they will give you on the PPP loan. So if it's you and just you, and you pay yourself $4,000 a month, you're going to get $8,000 PPP loan. Okay. And there'll be a little bit more in there. You might get $10,000 for rent because you put in your rent or your interest on your mortgage for the building or your home office, your utilities, internet, insurance, benefits, health insurance, retirement accounts. So you get a little bit of money there too. But primarily, most of it is going to be payroll. That's, again, the PPP loan is for any business that has employees with payroll. If you're an Uber driver, you don't qualify. If you pick up dog poop, you don't qualify. If you're a stay-at-home mom, you don't qualify. If you're a stay-at-home dad, you don't qualify. If you're a contractor and you lay carpet, you don't qualify. You have to have employees on payroll to qualify for the Payroll Protection Program, PPP. There's still money. I don't know how much money because they ran out a couple times. But I recommend you go to the SBA.gov, and you haven't done it yet, go to SBA.gov and apply for PPP. Or if you log into your bank, like I looked at earlier at US Bank, as soon as I logged in, PPP loans. I logged in to do payroll for my business, PPP loans available. I went to Wells Fargo today, PPP loans. So most banks are doing it. If you run payroll through any company, most of them, when it pops up now, there's PPP money still out there. So I highly recommend you get it if you haven't. Now let's talk about PPP before I get into EIDL. PPP, Payroll Protection Program, 75% forgivable. That's right, 75% forgivable with an option to get the other 25% forgiven as well with certain specifications. And I want to talk about that today, how you can get 75 to 100% of the PPP money. I said loan, money. I'm making up words today. Lunny. How to get 100% of the money or loan distributions forgiven. What does that mean? That means you don't have to pay it back. If you don't qualify and you don't do this properly, you have to pay that money back in 18 months. And payments are required in 6 months from issue date. All right, so how do you qualify to have this debt forgiven? And it's really not that difficult, but people are screwing it up. 75% of the distribution, the loan, must be used for payroll. Now, Congress is meeting on June 15th to potentially lower that to 60%. And we think they're going to approve that. But as of this recording, it's 75%. In the future, it might be 60%. So as long as you spend 75% of that money on payroll in the 8 weeks after they issue the loan, or the money's wired into your bank account, they will forgive it. So again, if you spend 75% of the PPP money on payroll within 8 weeks, they'll forgive it. You don't have to pay any of it back, and it's not taxable. However, that payroll expense is not tax deductible because that would be double dipping. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say that you are issued $100,000. And over the next 2 months, and I'm just using that number to make it easy. So you're issued $100,000. And over the next 2 months, you spend $75,000 on payroll. That $75,000 would be completely forgivable. But you can't deduct the $75,000 that you paid in payroll like you normally do because the government gave you the money. So that's what I mean by non-deductible. Now, again, Congress on June 15th is going to vote to maybe lower this to 60% and extend it to 16 weeks. So you don't have to do it in the 8 weeks. But as of right now, it's only 8 weeks. Now, why is Congress going to vote to make it 16. Because a lot of us are tyrannical governors, specifically California, are not letting business owners reopen. Same thing with Nevada, where my company's headquartered. They're not letting us reopen. And because we can't reopen, we can't have the employees come back in. Therefore, we can't pay it in that 8 weeks. And so Congress is saying, okay, let's extend it to 16 weeks. This should give the employer a long enough time to pay back the employees. So the whole idea of the PPP loan is so you don't lay off your employees. That's really what it is. Keep you in business, keep your employees getting money so they're not on unemployment insurance, and keep everything functioning. What you can't do with this money, you can't just go buy a Ferrari with it. You can't go to Las Vegas when the strip clubs open back up and go have a party night. You could, but that's not going to qualify for the forgiveness. You'd have to pay that loan back in 18 months. Now, I said earlier that there's a potential of you being able to forgive all of it or get all of it forgiven. And I want to go over that next on how you get the additional 75%, the additional 25% forgiven. The way you do that is that money is spent on rent for your building, your office space, or mortgage interest if you own the building. The money spent on utilities, gas, sewer, water, electricity, internet. It is spent on office cleaning and other things inside the office. What can't be used would be like credit card payments, car loans, SBA loans, etc. So if you take, again, if you got $100,000, $75,000 went to your payroll and $25,000 went to rent, internet, water, sewer, gas, electric, etc., then they'll forgive the 100% of that loan. Non-taxable. They just forgive it. Don't have to pay back any of it. Let's say that, you could only spend 20 grand on rent and everything else, and you got $5,000 left over. Well, you're going to have to pay that back over an 18-month period. Payments start 6 months after you get the money, and it's as little as 1% interest depending on your PPP loan documents, because they keep changing it. It was 0%, and then it's up to 1%. Here's what you can't do. You can't prepay rent. So you can't just write a check to your landlord and pay like 4 months in advance. All right. Here's what I've been telling people from day one. Put your PPP money in your operating account. Change your deposit account where you deposit your checks, where your merchant account deposits. Put that into a different account. Separate it completely. Keep it clean. Because here's what they're requiring now. And they're literally, I swear to you, they change it every single day. I get an email every single day with the change. As of right now, you will be required to provide bank statements to the SBA proving the money was used for payroll, for rent, for insurance, for utilities. You can't just fill it out on a tax return. What I find interesting is I figured I could just print out my Intuit payroll report, my 941, but they're not accepting that. They actually want bank statements so they can see the money coming out of your operating account. Now, the reason I was saying was to switch accounts is if you haven't been shut down and you are receiving income and you're still selling products and still selling services and money's still coming in like it is for my business, you want that money going into a separate account because it just makes it cleaner. And then you use what I'm doing is I'm using that money to buy more ads. When everyone else is running scared, I'm buying more ads for my businesses. I'm spending more money on marketing. I'm spending more money on infrastructure. I'm hiring people. I've hired 32 people over the last 4 to 5 weeks. So I'm spending my profit on building, expanding my business, and I'm using my PPP and idle money to maintain my business. All right, so that's the PPP program. Now, idle, that's economic injury disaster loans. These are loans that have been around for a long time. These are loans that the government will give people that were victims of a hurricane or tornado, an earthquake, a flood. And they come in and they give out these loans in an attempt to get the people back on their feet. And sometimes they give you houses. I have a house in Florida, a piece of property with one of these houses on it. Hurricane Ike come through, wiped out the house that was on it. They brought in a house, put it in. I brought the property like 5-6 years ago out of foreclosure, but it's one of those FEMA houses, and they just gave it to the person that lived there because her house literally got wiped out because of the hurricane. And so the government come in and gave her a new house and then gave her like $20,000, and then they forgave it. Now here's how idle works. Same thing. They're loaning you as a business based on gross revenue. Now, it was in the beginning up to $2 million, and they were going to issue out $349 billion total to 30 million businesses. Obviously, 30 million businesses would not get very much money if there's only 349 billion, right? And so they started giving out $2 million loans, but then they ran out of money, like literally in one day, they ran out of money. So then Congress got back together and they issued a bunch more money. And then recently they changed it from $2 million to $150,000, regardless of how much money your company brings in. So it's kind of like a tip. You know, my company brings in millions of dollars every year, and I should have qualified for the $2 million. And I filled out the idle loan the day, like at 9:01 a.m. Eastern time when it was available. I filled it out, and I'm getting 150 grand, and I should have got 2 million. But that's just the way it's set up, right? You know, I can't go cry to the SBA and say I should have got the 2 million. So they're going to give me 150 grand. Now that money needs to be used again on payroll, on expenses. If you use it to pay off long-term debt, like an SBA loan, credit card loans, car loans, any kind of debt, you may be penalized for that. And again, they're going to look for bank statements to see where the money went. So again, here's what I recommend. If you're still in business, you put that money in your operating account, you put your daily deposits, your merchant accounts into a separate account, and you pay down debt with the daily deposits. You use the idle money for day-to-day operations to keep your business afloat. You use your sales to pay down your debt. Now, the idle money will be financed over 30 years at 3.75% interest. So 30 years at 3.75, and you're going to get $150,000 or up to $150,000. And what I've seen is if your company grosses $500,000 or more, you will get a $150,000 loan over a 30-year period at 3.75. And just like when a hurricane hits or a tornado or a flood or an earthquake, many times those loans are forgiven. And Congress is actually talking about forgiving the idle loans as well, as long as it's used on payroll. So here's what I'm doing, and I highly recommend you talk to a tax professional or legal counsel. Don't do what I'm doing because I'm doing it, but this is what my tax professionals told me to do. I set up 2 separate bank accounts, one for my daily processing that I bring in every day for my day-to-day operation, and then I put my idle and my PPP money over there. I'm using that strictly for payroll because I'm going to apply to have the whole thing wiped out. And that's what I recommend that you do, but talk to your tax professional. And then use your day-to-day to pay down your debt. Use the idle and PPP to maintain your business. Think of it as just a bonus. Now, Maybe your business has been hit and you can't do that. But if it hasn't, that's a great way to do it. What I don't recommend that you do is go buy new shit, like a new car or a new boat or whatever. If you're going to use the money to go buy something for the business to make more money, then that makes sense. But don't just go out and blow it because you got $150,000 just deposited. It's like, woo, Vegas time, right? So don't do that. Now, again, as a recap, PPP, as of right now, is 75% forgivable. Potentially the other 25% will be forgiven. EIDL 100% has to be paid back. However, Congress is meeting, like I said, June 15th to talk about maybe forgiving EIDL. And you just have to do certain things. And right now it is providing bank statements, not just a tax return. All right, let's talk about one more thing that falls under the CARES Act, and that is an SBA loan. If you currently have an SBA loan, as of April 1st, the government is paying your SBA payment for you. So if you have an SBA loan, they're making the payment for you. You can continue to make that payment, and your payment will be applied to principal, and it will pay off that loan much, much faster. Here's what I'm doing, and here's what I recommend that you do if you have other debt. My SBA loan is like 4.5% interest. It's pretty low. But because I had to buy out my partner last year, I used my credit cards to do that. And then I also had an employee that stole a bunch of money from me, and I bailed myself out with some credit cards. So I racked up about $1.1 million of credit card debt last year. Fortunately, I only have about $100,000 to go. So I've just been hacking away at that debt because, it's anywhere from 17 to 29% interest. And that's a lot of freaking interest. But sometimes you just got to do what you got to do, right? And that's the nice thing about having good credit and good business credit is you have that ability versus if I didn't, who knows, I could have gone into bankruptcy if I didn't have the credit cards to pay off the $1 million of debt and buy out a partner and fix the problems that my previous partner had caused. So what I'm doing is, like I said, I'm almost out of credit card debt. I have a little bit left. I am not paying my SBA loan of $5,000 a month because it's like 4 or 5% interest and the government's paying it for me. So I'm not being reported as late. Then I'm taking that $5,000 for that SBA payment and I'm putting that towards credit card debt. And they're going to pay that from last time I read. And again, it changes every single day for 6 months. So I'm going to take $30,000 that I normally would pay towards the SBA on the 5% interest loan, and I'm going to pay off a credit card at 29% interest. This is something you can do. There's also companies out there that are doing deferments. I do not recommend you do a deferment on a car loan, on a credit card, or a mortgage unless you absolutely have to. No exceptions. There's no way around it. You have to do a deferment, then you do what you got to do. But I do not recommend that you do it, with one exception, and that is on a car loan. On your mortgage, whatever you have to do to make that payment, do not go into deferment on mortgage. That will haunt you. If you try to refinance, it will haunt you for the next couple of years. So definitely don't do it on the mortgage unless you absolutely have to. You have no exceptions, no way around it. You got laid off, you're not getting unemployment insurance, and that's the only way to keep the house, then do it. But the one way I do recommend that you do a deferment, or why you do a deferment, is let's say you have a car loan similar to my SBA loan. It's like 4 or 5% interest, and it's $500 a month. But you got a credit card that's 29% interest, or 15%, or 17%, or whatever it is, considerably more than the car payment. What I would do is I would defer the car payment at the lower interest rate, take 100% of that money, and put it towards the lowest balance credit card and pay off that credit card. Now, I would only do this if they're doing a deferment to where they're adding the payment on the end of the contract, not you got to catch up 4 payments. in 4 months from now. But they're actually putting the payment at the end. Because this way, instead of paying down the car loan at 5% interest, you're putting $500 a month on a 17% interest credit card. You're going to pay off your debt a lot faster. Now, generally, you know that I always say that you always start with the smallest balance, not highest interest rate. In this case, it's a little bit different because you kind of got a free pass on these deferments. So that's about the only time I would recommend a deferment is if they're going to add it to the end of the loan, not on your mortgage, but on a car loan, and then use that money to pay off the lowest balance credit card. And if that gets paid off during this deferment, then put it on the second lowest credit card, right? So this is what I recommend that you do on your SBAs and your deferments. I know I had a little break there because I was trying to think, is there anything else I need to cover with you? Oh, here's another thing if you're an employer, they are going to vote on June 15th to extend the payroll taxes. They had extended it so you didn't have to pay payroll taxes, and payroll taxes are your half of the Social Security tax, the federal tax, the state tax that you pull out of the employee's paycheck, and then you pay that. They are going to vote on June 15th on whether or not they're going to extend that to where you don't have to pay that right away, and then you can catch it up later. Again, if you're a business and you can take $10,000 a month from payroll tax and put it towards a high interest credit card, you might want to do that. Because I suspect what they'll do is they're not going to say, okay, well, you had 6 months off of payroll. Now you owe 7 months worth right now. I don't think they're going to do that. I think what they're going to do is say, all right, so you owe us 6 months. Here's a payment plan at 10% interest or 5% or no interest. You have 10 months to pay it off for 12 months, and you just pay an extra $1,000 a month until it's paid off. I think that's what they're going to do. If you are somebody that is not making your payments because you lost your job, you're not getting unemployment, or you are getting unemployment, but it's not as much as you used to make, I have good news for you, and that is Donald Trump changed the Fair Credit Report Act, or Congress signed it into law, right? But Donald Trump's administration pushed it through, and that is as of February 15th to July 15th, so 7 months, banks are not legally allowed to report you late from February 15th to July 15th, even if you were already late. So if you've been rolling in that rolling 30 and you missed January and you missed February, missed March, they cannot report you February or March, even if you didn't make the payment. They got to report no data from February 15th to July 15th. So they're going to report as no data, or they're going to report as paid as agreed. If they are reporting you late, you need to immediately call them and ask them to fix it. If they don't, call my office and I'll put you in touch with an attorney and they will file a lawsuit. And there's going to be literally thousands and thousands of lawsuits filed. And it'll probably turn into class action lawsuits because the banks are still reporting people late, even though the Fair Credit Report Act that was altered in March and backdated February 15th says you can't report people late, even if they are late. So that's some good news, right? That you might have been stressed that, hey, I haven't been making my payments because I don't have the money. They can't report you late. Now, you will have to catch it up by July 15th. But I think what they'll do, as long as you work something out with them, they won't even report you late after that. So, all right, I think that's enough information for you today. I appreciate you. If you have not watched my PPP or EIDL loan video on YouTube, go to YouTube right now and watch it. It'll explain how to fill out the application, where to go, what to say, what boxes to check, how long the process takes, etc. So go to YouTube channel. And as always, if you want daily information on how to increase your credit, how to reduce your taxes, how to create and grow wealth and protect wealth, follow me on social medias, on all of them. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn. I post on all of them, some of them every day, some of them every few days, and it's always different content on different channels. So you pick whichever is your favorite channel. follow me at Rondy Lambeth on any of the social medias. I appreciate you. Have a great day.